In the last class, I mean, in the previous class, we have discussed up to the democratic politics. In this context, we have discussed the theories of the state. So today, we are going to discuss another aspect that may talk about modern state and welfare. If we may talk about the ancient city state, like we may talk about in the Greece, ancient Greece, also we may talk about in the Rome. So the concept of the state in the ancient times and the concept of state today. Today we call it the modern state. Modern state exactly we mean in 21st century, the state where democracy is in practice. We call it the modern state. And welfareism, welfare. Generally we mean welfare means to look after the development of the society, to look after the development of the state, to look after the development of the world that we may talk about it. And in this context, dear friends, when we are talking about the modern state, we must keep in mind, for your information, dear friends, as far as the modern state concept is concerned, that we must keep in mind. Generally, where there is a political community, where there is the political parties are working. And it is the fact, dear friends, when we may talk about in context to the modern state, it was started from 1648 as far as the Westphalia is concerned. So Westphalia has been treated as the modern state and where a so-called political communities were living. And if people see that when we are talking about the modern state is characterized by the sovereign authority over a definite territory. For example, when we are talking about Bharat, so Bharat has the sovereign power. Why I am talking about the sovereign power? Because the state has the sovereign power. How to talk about it? That sovereign power can be used for the cause of the society. The simple example I may uh, give for your better understanding. Everybody knows the people who are living in Bhubaneswar. They know what the encroachment made in front of the Lingaraj temple and what encroachment was made surrounding the Jagannath temple. So now, just imagine, dear friends, after thousands of years, it was not evacuated. Now, if people see that, I couldn't believe. surrounding the Jagannath temple right now, one can easily travel, that we see that what the space has made. And the individual cannot do it, or the MLA cannot do it. Only the state took the decision, and ultimately the place was encroached free. So therefore, I'm talking about the difference. The state has the sovereign authority, the state has the sovereign power, and the power being used by the state for the welfare of the people, for the benefits of the people. And that sovereign authority fixed over a definite territory. Here, people cannot say that Bharat has the sovereign power on America. Just everybody, if I may give the example at Pahalgaon. So at the Pahalgaon of Kashmir, the terrorists, they killed 26 the tourists. But people say that though India gave threatens, though the process of the war already made, but still then instantly and immediately Bharat didn't impose the sovereign authority over Pakistan. So the sovereign power, the sovereign authority by a state can be used, can be applied for a fixed territory. That you must keep in mind, dear friends. This is the first characteristics of the modern state. Coming to the second characteristics. What is the second characteristics, dear friends? The second characteristics being taken into the account, that is the bureaucratic structure. Just may talk about Kautilya's Arthashastra. What Kautilya's Arthashastra has mentioned about the state affairs, the city administration, what is today correspondent to the municipal corporation, municipal council, or you may talk about the Bigyampit NAC, Notified Area Council. So if we may talk about it today the modern state is run by the bureaucratic structure, Amala Tantra Gathan. Just imagine this. We are talking about the department. If we may talk about Odisha, I may talk about Bharat. Bharat is, in Bharat today, there is the democratic form of the government, ancient Bharat, ମଧ୍ୟଯୁଗୀୟ ଭାରତ ଏବଂ ପ୍ରାଚୀନ ଭାରତ ଏବଂ ସମସାମୟିକ ଭାରତ. That you must keep in mind, dear friends, the contemporary Bharat. So in the contemporary Bharat, I may use the word the contemporary. It is more better than to use the modern state. It will be more better. We are talking about the contemporary state because in context to India up to 1947, we are talking about the modern state. If you may talk about the Westphalia of 1648 for your information. And whenever we talk the bureaucratic, now the state is run by the IAS officers. In each and every department, there is the secretary, the post of the secretary, additional secretary, principal secretary, deputy secretary. So all the deputies, the secretaries are IAS officers, that we may talk about it. And they have cleared the EPAC and they became the what we may talk about the administrators. So therefore I'm talking about in each and every department, it may be the education, it may be the health, it may be the agriculture, it may be the Panchayat Raj, it may be the BMC in context to this as a concern, or we may talk of the city administration, In each and every department, there is the secretary, and that post is the bureaucratic structure. Even if it is mentioned that the modern states, the political affairs, is run by the bureaucrats, and the bureaucrats they look after, they monitor. The bureaucrats they look after, they monitor the administration of the state. So therefore, we are talking about, dear friends, the bureaucratic structure. They are the power corridors. We want to talk about it. The third characteristics, as per the modern state is concerned, we call it, dear friends, rule of law. Yes, when we are talking about the modern state is run by a set of principles, a series of laws, series of principles. So the constitution is in context to Bharat. We have the longest and the largest constitution. So what is the constitution? Constitution is a written document and it contains a series of the principles, laws, which guides the nation, which guides the society, which guides the individual, and the constitution is being treated as the guardian of the state. Here there is no ruler. Here every individual is the ruler of self. ଆପଣମାନେ ଆଶ୍ଚର୍ଯ୍ୟ ହେବେ dear friends. ଏଠି ଆମକୁ କେହି ରାଜା ଶାସନ କରୁନାହାନ୍ତି. Now we are not ruled by Chandragupta Maurya. We are not ruled by Samudragupta, Chandragupta Vikramaditya. We are not ruled by the Kharavela. So that we must keep in mind, dear friends. We are ruled by a set of principles. If you may talk about the Constitution of India, we have 395 the prime articles and the clauses or the sub-articles being included, and we are reaching up to 448 articles. So therefore we are talking about we are ruled by the law. If there is the violence of the rights, therefore in the Constitution of India, Bharat, the very first Article 14 speaks that everyone is equal before the law. आइन आगे समस्ते समान, irrespective of the caste, creed, color, sex, or race, religion, religion. So everyone is equal just before the law. Therefore, we are talking about we are ruled by a set of laws, we are ruled by a set of principles, and all the principles are designed for the welfare of the people. ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ମଙ୍ଗଳ. What ମଙ୍ଗଳ we talk about? ଆମେ ଯଦି ମଙ୍ଗଳ କଥା କହୁ, welfare କଥା କହୁ, in a democratic state, in the modern state, every individual, every citizen of a state should have, every individual of the state should have the responsibility. What kind of the responsibility, dear friends? The responsibility towards the nation as well as the nation's responsibility towards the individual to look after the five basic needs that we must keep in mind, dear friends. So, what kind of the needs? The food, shelter, clothes, health, and education. The five basic needs. So, therefore, I'm talking about in the modern state, to the modern state and the welfare is rule of law is important because this is a democratic state. This is not a monarchical state. This is not the authoritarian state. In the authoritarian state, in the monarchism, their force is introduced. But in the democracy, law is introduced. Law guides the state. So now coming to the fourth point, that is, dear friends, the nationhood. People see so, dear friends, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the nationhood. So, what is the nationhood? Nationhood means this is the fourth characteristics of the modern state. So, dear friends, when we are talking about the nationhood, every people, every individual, every person, or the every individual connected by the identity, language, and the culture. So, in a state, if we are talking about Bharat, for our better understanding, Bharat is a state of unity in diversities. So, this is Bharat where we see many race, many sects, many language, many tradition, many customs, many food habits, many fears, many dance, and many dresses, many climate. So people see that nationhood means one should love to the motherland simultaneously, love uh, to the domicile from where he belongs, and therefore, in case of Odisha, there is a slogan by the present Sarkar, Odia Asmita. So, dear friends, I'm talking about the nationhood, brotherhood. So, nationhood means one's love towards the motherland. We call it the nationhood. Towards the nation, we call the nationhood. Towards the motherland, we call it the motherhood. And it is identified by the identity. What kind of the identity? The identity in terms of the caste, terms of the color, the terms of the Odia, whenever we people are speaking Odia, and any part of the Bharat we are coming, we are considered, we are recognized as we are the people of Odia. And whenever we may talk about the Odissi in all over the world where the Odissi has performed, so people have been considered this dance form has belonged to Odisha. So every I'm talking about in the modern state concept and welfareism as means we see that there is the nationhood. And another we may talk about as per the Marx Weber is concerned, so monopoly over the use of the force. Over the use of the force, when we may talk about the force is there, now monopoly. Monopoly exactly means that we may talk about the exactly what exactly article relating to 19, right to the freedom. So right to the freedom means suppose you people are joined here, but all are not joined in the class. They have not joined, though the compulsion is there, but still then they use the monopoly over the use of the force. They may not use the force, they may not use the power, they may not use the monetary power, muscles power, but they use the power of the monopoly. Article 19 says freedom of speech and expression. So I am talking of the context of the Bharat for the better understanding. So, dear friends, democratic state, the modern state, no doubt, it is a very good concept. I am not against of it. But as a student of history, I always respect to the monarchical form of the government. It may be the time of the Chandragupta Maurya or the time of the Huan Sang. Sorry, the time of the Harshavardhan. It may be the time of the Srigupta or the time of the Chandragupta Vikramaditya in context to the Bharat. So why I'm talking about it? At that time, we see that in the monarchical form of the government, that we must keep in mind that just a second, dear friends. So for your information, I'm talking about what? Just a second. So, dear friends, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the concept of the monopoly. So, monopoly is not a good sign for the welfare of the people. Monopoly is not a good sign at all. Because due to the freedom, the people are thinking that, okay, we may join, we may not join in the class. It is because of the monopoly. The state, the same thing has happened. In the modern state, the state apply the monopoly over the use of the force. Here, the government doesn't force to someone because the government is working according to the constitution. So the constitution is the set of the principles so that the government cannot use the force as per the Max Weber's theory is concerned. So dear friends, when we are talking about in 19th and I'm talking about as society, if people say that. So for your information, as societies in 19th and 20th century, the welfare state became part of the modern state's evolution. The welfare state. Now coming to our discussion is made. So welfare concept, what I mean, the welfare in the ancient times, in the Vedic times, the welfare in the time of the Ashoka, and the welfare today in 2025. Welfare exactly we mean Jana Mangala. Jana Mangala means the government's responsibility is to look after the growth and development of the individual, at least to fulfill the five basic needs: the food, shelter, clothes, health, and education. But if I talk about it, dear friends, today, case of Bharat is concerned, you all have gone through it. Even today, the people are not mitigated their stomachs. Even today, the people of Bharat are not getting a good piece of clothes to save their chastity. Even today, the people of the Bharat don't have the roof, the shelter. So in 19th, 20th century, the welfare state generally, the welfare state is the part of the modern state's evolution. So now coming to discuss about the welfare. A welfare state. Bharat is a welfare state. Odisha is the welfare state. A welfare state is a government bears the responsibility for the growth of economy as well as the social well-being of its citizens. That I'm talking about the growth and the development of the individual in terms of the food, shelter, clothes, health, and education. And in this regard, dear friends, whenever we are talking about it, the social insurance, the social development, that you must keep in mind, dear friends. So, what kind of the social development? For your information, at least the government's responsibility is each and every individual of a state could able to earn the money only because to avoid unemployment benefits, unemployed. So the government responsibility is not to provide the jobs, but provide the work culture through which one could able to earn the money at least to mitigate the stomachs. ये होचे सरकारଙ୍କର କାମ जनमंगल राष्ट्रର जे प्रत्येक व्यक्ति प्रत्येक नागरिक से फॉर योर इनफॉरमेशन डियर फ्रेंड्स कि तार पेट चाखंड के से पूरण करि पारुथिबा दरकार तार परिवार रो गुजरान मेंटे पारुथिबा दरकार एवं ता समाज राष्ट्र प्रति कर्तव्य को निभे पारुथिबा दरकार So, dear friends, I'm talking about the social insurance. The government's responsibility is to check unemployment benefits in one hand and provides the pensions. If people see that the persons who have contributed a lot, who have contributed a lot for the cause of the society, for the well-being of the society. So in the old age, they need they need to provide the pensions a kind of the allowance to fulfill their demands as far as the old age is concerned. Then I'm talking about the welfare difference, the public health service. So for your information, whenever we may talk about, whenever we may talk about the public health, I told it, dear friends, that is the responsibility of the government. But the responsibility is welfare of the people, type welfare, food, shelter, clothes, health. Our discussion is on health. So government's responsibility or the welfare state is meant to provide the solid health and sanitation. And therefore, through the government hospitals, I'm talking about in Bhubaneswar. In Bhubaneswar, there is one, the capital hospital. But the capital hospital doesn't mitigate the demands of the patients. As a result, we notice in Bhubaneswar itself, there are the lots of the private and the corporate hospitals come up. But it is the fact, dear friends, how far one can reach at the capital hospital. The same person cannot afford to the hospitals like the Apollo, the hospitals like the Amri, the hospitals like the Sham, Utkal, Keynes. So from that point of view, that is the welfare structure, the concept of the welfareism, that the government responsibility is to provide the health facilities to each and every citizen in one hand. Other hand, the government should make the plan, the state should make the plan to check off the health of the commons and provide them the nutrition and the free medical facilities. Therefore, Bharat today introducing the Aishman Bharat Yojana, and according to the Aishman Bharat Yojana, irrespective of the caste, creed, color, irrespective of the rich and poor, irrespective of the taxpayers or the non-taxpayers, everyone is ready to have the free health checkup facilities and the health facilities in each and every hospital, maybe the private, maybe the government, in the state and beyond the state. So, dear friends, this is called the as per the welfare is concerned. The government must extend, the state must extend. Kya? The state must extend the welfare of the people by extending the health facilities, by extending the medical facilities, by extending the cleaning facilities. This is the another characteristics difference. So now talking about the education system. So people see whenever we talk about the education, everybody knows like the Radharani, the Swadhin, Gayatri, Bhubaneswar. So we people have joined. This is the Sunday. Then we people are forced to join in the class, compulsion to join in the class. The reason is what? The reason is to gain knowledge. The reason is to be more educated. I am sure. Gayatri, hello. Am I
Yes,
audible?
sir. Yes, sir.
ମୋ ଭଏସ ଟା କ୍ଲିୟର ଶୁଭୁଛି?
Yes, sir.
ଆଚ୍ଛା,
Yes,
good.
yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So, dear friends, the government's responsibility is to provide education. What Gandhiji in 1936 introduced the concept of the Naintalim new education, vocationalization system of education. The same the Gopabandhu Das as an educationist popularized the concept of the education. Yes, we had the education in the Gurukul system of education, in the Vedic age. We had the education in the Buddhist age. We had the education in the Jaina periods of the Bharat Itihas. We have the education for your information. We have the education in we have education in the medieval times. We have the education in the modern times and in the contemporary times. So, dear friends, now that is the strong and the sole responsibility. Therefore, for your better understanding, I'm talking about the welfare state, the modern state emphasizes on the growth of education. Therefore, for your better understanding, are the students of history in Johannesburg of Africa, uh, one of the university, the Johannesburg University. So, in front of the university, the wall contains some sentences. What the sentence? The sentence was the state's collapse doesn't require the state's collapse doesn't require the bombardment, but the state's collapse is caused by the collapse of education. ଗୋଟେ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରର ପତନ କେବଳ ଖାଲି ବୋମା ପକେଇଦେଲେ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରର ପତନ ହବନି। ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରର ଶିକ୍ଷା ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ଭୁଷୁଡି ଯାଏ ତାହେଲେ ସେ ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର ବି ଭୁଷୁଡି ଯାଏ। That we must keep in mind, dear friends. So therefore, Article 21A of the Indian Constitution, what it speaks? It speaks about free and compulsory education in one hand, other hand, that is the instructions, the direction of the Article 21A. All the parents of the state should send their children compulsory to have the free and compulsory education. That is not the responsibility of us. That is the responsibility of the parents. They must send because education makes that we know sa vidya ja vimukta hai. ଯେଉଁ ବିଦ୍ୟା ଆମକୁ ମୁକ୍ତି ଦିଏ, we call it sa vidya ja vimukta hai. And through education, a state's growth and development is possible. Oh, so, dear friends, I'm talking about the education. Right now, you people might have gone through in context to the Bharat, contemporary Bharat. Since the inception of the democratic state in Bharat since 1947 till 2025, we all have gone through education policies. Therefore, every state, there is the mass education and the higher education. And at the center, there is the higher education. There is the Department of Education. So, in this context, I am talking about a state's responsibility is to provide the better and the quality education to the students through the quality teacher. So, therefore, from time to time, Bharat Sarkar is taking the responsibility to modify the syllabus of education, keeping in view of the demand, the odds of the contemporary times. That we must keep in mind, dear friends. And it cannot be relegated, it cannot be neglected. That we must keep in mind, dear friends. So, When we are talking about it, the education. Now, in 2020, Bharat Sarkar introduced NEP, New Education Policy. So, according to the new education policy, we see that each and every student be skilled and getting the scope to earn the money at the tender age, at the early age. So, therefore, from standard 6 to from standard 6 to onwards, in the new education policy, there is the vocational system of education that we must keep in mind, dear friends. And in this context, we say the government's responsibility is to make the policies according to the demand of the time, demand of the state, demand of the growth and the development to compete the world. So this is the education policy when we are talking about the education system needs to be according to the uh, time. Okay, now coming to dear friends, another concept, housing assistance. But I told the shelter, I told the shelter, Basagruho, but just the people see that in case of Bharat, a group of people, a percentage of the people, they are living in the sky-kissing building, sky-kissing building, Navas Prasad. If you are talking about the better example, I may give the Mukesh Ambani's, the Antilia. And at the same time, this is Bharat, where the people are living in the open sky, under the sky. ଖୋଲା ଆକାଶ ତଳେ ଆଜି ବି ଭାରତ ବର୍ଷରେ ଲୋକ ଶୋଉଛନ୍ତି. They don't have the shelter. So the modern state focuses on the welfare of the state through the accommodations. We may talk of the shelter. As a result, Bharat Sarkar introduced the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So people see that through that Awas Yojana, the Garib people, the poor people, the middle class people who are not unable to have to make the makan, to make the house, the government's responsibility, the state's responsibility is to come forward and to identify, to locate who we are, the poor or the poorest people, who we are, the needy people. That we must keep in mind, dear friends, for your better understanding. And in this regard, the government, what we see in the village areas, the government or the state, the modern state provides what? The housing system. As a result, the people are living peacefully. The another one is the poverty alleviation programs. So people see that that is the responsibility of the government. The responsibility of the government, that for your understanding, that is the responsibility of the government, that to eradicate the poverty, to eradicate the poverty. And how to eradicate the poverty? The poverty can be eradicated. The poverty alleviation means the responsibility of the government that to provide the earning source. I am not in support of that. The job is the only means to earn the money. ଖାଲି ଆମେ ଚାକିରି ପାଇଁ ପାଠ ପଢୁଛେ? No. The education's aim is not for the job exactly, but for your understanding, dear friends, I'm talking about. That is called, for your information, I'm talking about how to earn the money. That is the question. So that is the responsibility of the government to identify the poorest people and to extend the financial support. As a result, the poverty can be eliminated, the poverty can be eradicated. This is the another point. So now, dear friends, I'm talking about in the modern concept, when we're talking with the welfare state, you see, as far as the welfare state is concerned, the idea really took birth just after the Second World War. That we may keep in mind. After the Second World War, everybody knows, starts with the 1939 and with the 1945. And after 1945, the Beveridge Report of UK 1942 provided the blueprint for the post-war welfare policies. After the Second World War, we see that the responsibility of the government that the Beveridge Report 1942 of the UK had given the blueprint what kind of the welfare measures being taken by the state for the cause of the welfare of the people. Second, we may talk about, everybody knows, in the 1930s, the New Deal, that means the economic and the social reforms took birth. And in this regard, dear friends, I am talking about the modern state developed the welfare functions. The modern state now doing some of the welfare functions କିଛି ଜନହିତକର କାର୍ଯ୍ୟ କରୁଛି କେମିତି କରୁଛି ନା through certain steps. The step 1, industrialization and urbanization cause the new social problems. I'm talking about the difference. So, dear friends, I am talking about what? For your information, I am talking about the welfare concept, the welfare state. And in this regard, the modern state has taken some welfare steps. What are the welfare steps? The welfare steps through the industrialization and the process of the urbanization. And as a result, people see that many social problems issued. And now, talking about the labor movement. The labor movement demands. In England, we may talk about the Luddite movement, and we are talking about the Chartist movement. So the labor movement demands the protection. In all over Bharat, all over the world, there is the demand for the protection of the rights, protection of the life, protection of the property. And for your information, in 21st century, the modern state popularized the political ideologies like socialism. We are talking about the liberalism. So, for your information, when we are talking about the socialism or we are talking about the liberalism, for your information, socialism means the state should work in a societal manner, keeping in view of irrespective of the caste, creed, color, sex, race, religion, and religion. Article 15. There is no discrimination. Socialism promotes the concept there is no discrimination. One cannot be discriminated on the basis of the socialism, on the basis of the caste, on the basis of the color. And liberalism, the state should be liberal towards the growth and the development of the people and a desire to maintain the social stability. Yes, the modern state wants, trying to. So people might be talking about in case of Bharat, case of Odisha, the people demands the rights. As a result, they're making the strikes, they're making the hartals. So to avoid the revolutions, like the French Revolution, it was because of what? The Bourbon dynasty snatched away, we have discussed in the last class. The Bourbon dynasty snatched away the rights of the people, commons. So therefore, to avoid the revolutions, American Revolution, French Revolution, Russian revolutions, the Chartist movement. So people see that in the pages of history, we people could have been able to discuss. Then, dear friends, when we are talking about the welfare state, today we are talking about it is the universal programs. The state should focus on the universal benefit, not the benefit of one. but the benefit of more masses. That is known as the Scandinavian model. The Scandinavian model says that the program should meant for the rich, the same program should meant for the poor. Then we are talking about in case of America is concerned, there is the means tested assistance. What does it mean? It means if people see that the state should work, the state should the means of the to assist the people, to assist the poor, to assist the commons. Okay. Now going to talk about it, dear friends. As far as I have already told, the welfare benefits I have already told. Now going to talk about some new ideas like uh, as per the historical development is concerned, the modern state and the welfare regime is traced back to the Industrial Revolution, and it promoted to the urbanization through the urban poor. Then we are talking about the post-Westphalian expansion, Beverly's report I have already told, and we may talk about the USA, UK, known as the liberal states. If we may talk the Germany, France today, the conservative, the corporatalist states. If we may talk the Sweden, Norway, we are talking with the social democratic state. And if people see that, what kind there are certain challenges to the growth and the development of the modern state or the welfare state. So, what kind of the challenges being faced by the state? The number one that we may talk about the aging population. So, people see that Bharat now, the most populous state in the world, next to China, next to Bharat, the China is. Right now, in 2025, in the world, for your information, there is 700, more than 700 billions of the populations. So in this regard, I'm talking about it is a great challenge today that is called the aging populations. Then the globalization and the economic pressures is also another cause, or you may talk about the challenge. Then we were talking about the debates over the welfare courts. Then we talk about the welfare expansion. Then the migration. So these are certain aspects that we may talk about it. It is all about the welfare state and the modern state. Now I'm going to talk about the nationalism. Dear friends, what is nationalism? I am sure we all know about the nationalism. We all know how to talk about it. Nationalism is a state of action of the individual. As we belong to the Bharat, we belong to Odisha, irrespective of the religion, irrespective of the caste, creed, color, sex, race, religion, and the religion, whatever you may talk about it, dear friends, whatever you may talk about it. In this context, we are talking about the welfare concept or the welfare concept promotes the nationalism. Nationalism means ism is a philosophy. Love to the nation is a nationalism. And nationalism is a force to bind the people. Nationalism is a force. Nationalism is a force to bind the state. How to talk about it? Just if people see, we got independence 1947. We got independence. And we got independence because of the Bharatiya Jatiyatavad, Indian nationalism. How to talk about it? Just in the time of the British rule in India, just time before the British rule in India, we noticed that there was a tussle. I'm talking about it, dear friends. So Bharat got the independence 1946 because of the nationalism. Every individual must, it was the requirement, must know, must extend the duty towards the nation. So therefore, to create the nationalism, it was in case of the France, it was in case of the America, it was in case of the Italy, it was in case of the Germany, it was in case of the Rus, it was in case of Bharat, it was in case of Odisha. Difference in each and every state, there is the concept of the nationalism. And now question comes, in case of Bharat is concerned. So nationalism means generally loves to the motherland without any hesitation. That you must keep in mind. Without any hesitation. We must keep in mind, without any hesitation, every individual must extend their love and the compassions. So, dear friends, we discussed about the modern and the welfare state and the nationalism too. Okay, take just 4 to 5 minutes, at least 2 hours.